Alright, welcome back to another episode of Evil Dojo Raylib game development. I think the title of this video is Camera Speed and 3D Hallway. I want to give a big shout out to Dev SA here in town for inviting me to give a public talk on game development in C++ at a Unity game development workshop. That was very exciting. It's been a long time since I've gotten to present material in front of a live audience, let alone this was my first public talk. It was very exciting for me, and I hope everyone learned something and got inspired, and I hope people go forth and try out new tools like I've been doing. While I'm not touching Unity with a 10-foot pole right now, although I did get pretty close with my install script. I want to give a big shout out to the Unity presenters, because I learned a lot about how Unity works in general, and I have a big appreciation for what they're trying to do, right? What they've enabled a lot of people to do is very nice. It's appreciable. Making games is not easy, as evidenced by my 15 plus video series and all of the other different videos that I've done on the topic. Defining something sufficiently small enough to actually see completion in the way that I am doing is one of the goals, because getting the process down is important. Understanding exactly how you should go about doing things is important. And if you've never done it before, then you're going to have to go through those motions anyway, right? So why not play around and experiment and just try stuff, right? So that's why we're in Raylib. And in the previous video, I got a 3D hallway pretty much rendering, displaying a cube inside of it. We can move in and out of the hallway. And one of the things that was bothering me was that I wasn't having proper turning. And I'm still not quite there even after messing around with this code for a bit. But I did learn, or at least I can't say I've learned yet, but I've experienced a shift in perspective as to how a camera is supposed to work. Like, for instance, I got rotation working here, but something weird about how the rotation works is that even if you turn the camera all the way around to face behind you, if you press forward, it doesn't actually follow the direction that you're facing. It follows a completely separate vector. So you could think of it like a cameraman swiveling around on like an automated scooter of sorts. Kind of like directors in movies, right? So understanding this about camera in Raylib is really important, at least especially in the 3D space. Like, there's a 2D camera too that I'm playing around with, but the 3D camera being really important here. Why? The default movement for the camera is very slow. I found that I had to like start playing around with how we actually move in order to get the actual movement speed to change. And there's probably a more correct way to do turning, but like by default they have like W, A, S, and D. So here we're just checking to see see we've got much slower strafing, that way we're not like flying off the screen, but you can see how fast the cubes are moving, right? So we've got kind of like a system here where we're taking the frame time, multiplying it by a certain number, and that's the offset that moves. So everything is kind of tied. There's like a one-to-one relationship between like movement units and time units, right? So we can modify that ratio in order to get this, essentially. You know, we've got a certain speed for turning, we've got a certain speed for up down on the y-axis, we've got a certain speed for forward movement. And I think something very interesting to do is going to be creating like an infinite hallway. The reason that there's multiple videos, you know, coming up, like excuse me. The reason that there's so many videos coming up so quickly back to back is because, honestly, at the end of making this video, I realized there's got to be a way to integrate C++ into Raylib in an easy fashion. And sure enough, there is. I discover it, I record the whole process, and we're going to cover that in the next video. But that's going to lead back into this. So I've already fucked your mind 12 ways from Sunday by talking about multiple videos coming up in this video and having to tie it all back together, because we're going to come back here to continue the 3D hallway stuff, right? But we're going to take a segue in order to decouple ourselves from the Raylib game template that Rayson has provided for us, because I don't necessarily like the organization and way of doing things. Plus, I really, I don't know how many times I could say that shit, really want fucking C++. I want the standard template library. I want all of the data structures and algorithms that come with that access, because those are really, that and classes are really, you know, the most important parts of C++ in modern day from my perspective. Because like a lot of this code right here, this is the straight C, you know, like Raylib is written in C, and that's great. And you know, I think most graphics libraries should be straight C, low level like that, right? Like, but in terms of appreciating tools, I hate to get philosophical. Shout outs to Venatio Decorus / Octopus. I know how much you hate my I know how much you hate my philosophical waxing and waning, but I'm gonna do it anyway, because fuck you. Most graphics libraries should be low level, right? Like, they should be really fast. And in terms of appreciating tools, growing up learning Java, JavaScript, etc., I hated them. Why? Anyone can get a job as banker, you know, writing fucking Java GUIs for multinational corporations. You don't even have to learn another programming language. But I was bored. It was too easy. I had no appreciation for what they were giving me. I wanted to go low level, right? Like, I wanted to dig deeper and deeper in the opposite direction. I can't say this is the standard case for most computer scientists, programmers, developers, etc. But it's just how my own mind works, right? Like, you know, instead of taking software development or software engineering in college, You know, I took compiler writing, multimedia systems, Unix and network security. That was my jam. That was just what I liked to do. You know, like, that's led here. So anyway, playing around with the turning, trying to figure out why does it behave the way that it behaves, which still isn't clear to me. But essentially, using Update Camera Pro, you can directly set the vectors on the camera itself in order to define target and position, which are the two different, like, you could think of the target as the direction that you're facing, and the position as the actual thing sitting beneath you that you're riding around on. So getting some of these fundamental concepts down when working in 3D spaces is super important. And if you're coming into it for the first time, it's not going to be immediately clear to you until you play around, you know, essentially fuck around and find out, right? So let's take a pause here and just kind of see what's on the screen. We've got a couple key downs. W, so this is handling left movement. So remember that calculation for forward movement up at the top. All we're really doing is adding that to camera.position.z and camera.target.z, and then doing the same thing for S, which is down. Well, it should be, actually. Yeah, W and S being forward and back, and then A and D left and right. And then the actual arrow keys, I decided to make the turning function. So Update Camera Pro takes a pointer to a camera object. It takes a vector 3, and then it takes another vector 3, and then it takes a float zoom. So you can just directly update the camera that way too. So we're just constantly modifying the camera object, you know, just moving around in the space at the moment. A lot of the demos on the website actually segregate between like camera stuff and then stuff that has like a camera and a player, and it'll be interesting to like write stuff that attaches the camera to the player, you know, when we're actually working on a game finally. But right now we're just playing around, trying to understand how things work, trying to build some cool, interesting demo that we can eventually code golf and do some obfuscation on. I think that would be really fun. So now I'm just playing around with the default position of the camera, trying to set it further and further back to like the beginning of the hallway so we can actually just run through the whole thing, because I'm going to add a loop trigger mechanism that essentially, once we hit the end of the hallway, warps me back to the beginning of the hallway. So this is looking pretty good so far, and it's moving pretty good, but then we realize, oh, we get to the very end. Still have to debug that shell return 139. I think that was one of the reasons I ended up abandoning the template, because I couldn't quite figure out what was causing that crash when you try to close the game. And I don't think I have it anymore with my new setup. So here we are, resetting the position of the camera when we hit the end of the hallway. So looking around, making sure everything looks good, starting the camera position at the edge of the hallway so that it kind of gives this looping effect when I run all the way to the edge. So actually, I'm going to sidestep to, yeah, so I move back to show that we're at the edge, and now we're moving forward. Boom, boom, boom. 3 cubes fly by at a certain speed. We hit the edge, and we're at the beginning again. Whee! Now, I figure in the future, once I actually go back to tweak this, there's gotta be a way to make it appear like we're at the other edge. So maybe one thing we could do is have a second invisible camera that exists a certain distance ahead, or when it loops back around. I'm just thinking out loud here right now. Like, if we have a camera here and the camera is rendering everything, can we have a second camera that renders to a second texture and then render that texture inside the other texture and give it the illusion of being infinite? Like, is that how Portal works? Because I would be so down to like make a fucking rudimentary Portal, like our own like version of that game. Dude, that would be fucking sick, right? Like, we can totally do that from this space. I just realized this right now. Maybe that's gonna be my 4th game. I've already got 2 other games planned after Skull, and I'm already thinking about rewriting Skull and Raylib. I'm having such a good time fucking around in it, dude. Like, I can't even begin to sing my praises of this product at the moment. It's very impressive what you're able to do and how quickly. In the end, working in libSTL was more of a function of not knowing about Raylib 1, but also I'm not even sure Raylib, well, I'm not sure how much of the internet even knew of Raylib in like 2014, because I got my start playing around in C++ game dev really with lazy food tutorials, as well as inspiration from the YouTuber Biscuit. Shoutouts to both of those guys. Really big fan. Love what they do. So now I'm just kind of just playing with the speed still. Just noticing how everything is. Now we're going really fast. But now I'm also noticing the thing about the camera and how like you can swivel backwards, and when you press forward you're still moving forward on a certain trajectory, but you can still face whatever direction that you want. Because when you're first setting out trying to make like a FPS demo and you don't understand this fact, it's going to be very much like tank controls. In fact, this is probably where a lot of tank control games come from in the first place. Just people not taking time to wire shit up in a little bit more clean of a fashion and just sticking with how it does it by default. Let's see. I'm gonna speed this up a little bit. What do we got going on here? I think I'm just cleaning up at the moment. Oh, I think Oh yeah, so we got multicolored cubes now. I think I try to do something involving like changing the cube colors and just playing around with the colors at this point. So we could probably crank this up without losing a whole lot of information about what I've done or what I'm doing. When some cool demos start, I'll slow it back down to regular speed. But cleaning up and stuff like that, there's not a whole lot that I need to explain here. The code is very self-evident. But one thing I am doing here is attempting to randomly change the color of every cube on every frame draw, which results in a very not seizure-friendly display, but it's very visually appealing if you're able to do that kind of thing. Not trying to upset or offend, but this is more of a just pure programmatic capability. So like, let's step back and look at that again, right? So here we are. So we've got some really crazy color flashing going on there, and that's because every single frame the computer is selecting a randomly generated color and using that to draw the cube. And it's doing it for all three cubes, and they all appear like they are just seizuring color-wise out of control. So, but and you don't see a lot of this, probably because of that reason, now I think about it. But I still find it interesting and fun as a graphics primitive to explore that sort of space where you have rotating colors. So one more sane thing to do would be to slow down the frame rate by which colors are selected, and eventually you can have kind of a setup where the cubes change color every time you run through the end of the level, and maybe once you get them in a certain color order, some other door unlocks. Let's get into the little game design there, right? Because the cubes thing is just so silly. I find it really interesting because one of my ideas that I'd like to explore is making not a sprite editor, but maybe a sprite editor could emerge out of this process, but more like a voxel engine where you can feed it a sprite sheet and it renders everything using cubes instead of pixels. So if you have relatively, I don't know what's an unreasonable number of cubes to draw, but if you had, say, and actually we could do a demo. I could do a demo video. That'd be cool. How many cubes can we draw in one go? Like, how many can we have on screen at one time? Because that would define how many we can reasonably have on a sprite. So if we have small enough sprites, we could have potentially a lot and just have an entire game. Oh, so I changed the colors to black and white because I thought that would be aesthetically appealing. So the cubes are black, the edge of the level's black, the background outside's black. Black and white as a color aesthetic in game development is underexplored but highly appreciated. We have a lot of possibilities in this space. Every game that you design can potentially apply this color schema, right? It's extremely cheap. You can design games without graphics that rely entirely upon shapes, and still do a whole lot with it. One of my big problems as a game developer and designer is creating graphics. It takes a long time to make good graphics. It might just be easier to make shapes and then build a game around that, and that way I could apply the black-white color schema and we still get good aesthetics. There's several games that do, there's a lot of games that do this. One of the games I can think of that does this, not directly, it uses subtly different color. It doesn't use black and white, it uses like black and some other colors, like gray and stuff like that, is Dig Dog, which was done by a dude, I think here in Texas. And he did it in Python, entirely using only his voice. So I got the color cube, or the seizure cubes going again there. The white background is a very nice, clean feeling. I don't know how I feel about black space anymore. So at this point, I'm just kind of looking around, just thinking, how do I get it to full screen? And I realize I'm not sure this dude wrote toggle full screen stuff. I think the little sandbox game template that he provides doesn't provide like a mechanism to like press F for full screen or anything like that. Which during my development process, I like a one button full screen, which I know that there is a toggle full screen function. That's besides the point. So I'm trying to find or implement toggle full screen. And actually I do here, and it works, but it doesn't quite capture on OBS. What ends up getting recorded, you'll see. So I have F11, and it only captures like this. So in previous Skull videos, what I did to capture full screen was, before recording, I set up a window capture as a source. So when I ran Skull, I made it full screen, and then I set that window up as a window capture source in OBS, which allows me to actually record full screen, but that's the only way I can actually do it. If you attempt to record full screen while you're capturing your full screen, there are weird graphics glitches that occur, such as what you saw there, but I guarantee you, I actually saw full screen. And I will do better to right this wrong in future videos. Please accept my apologies. I was a little bit sloppy there. But now I'm playing around trying to get the full screen back and forth. And actually, I think as it turns out, you don't even need to necessarily do that, but I think it's like a good guarantee to make sure that you get the same screen width and same screen height that you started with when you go back and forth between windowed and full screen. So I kind of think about it. I think, do I need this? So the back and forth works. Oh, we're almost at the end of the video. So actually, because of that, I'll go and wrap this up. My thoughts at this point begin to think, I really want to get some C++ in here. I need to start doing some serious world object management, and I can't do that if I don't have access to the data structures that I need. I need some maps, I need some vectors, I need to be able to run some functions on those. I need to be able to update game states. I don't want to have to do this entirely with structs. I want to be able to kind of integrate classes so I can do some proper testing, right? Like, it's really important to me that I'm able to integrate unit testing so I can automate some of the more nasty parts of debugging. And that also is another reason why I need C++. So, like I said, we have another video coming up on getting Raylib, like one, building Raylib as a library, and then installing it on your system, and then starting like a new Raylib project from scratch, and doing it all in one source file, right? Writing your own make, and because of that, you're able to set it up so that you can use C++. So we solve a lot of problems coming up, and we'll be able to get back to 3D stuff in the near future. But until then, everyone, please enjoy the rest of your week and take it easy.